welcome. It's Nevermind the Ballast. I'm Paul O'Neill. It's nice to see you all. 6 o'clock. It's Wednesday. Can only mean one thing, can't it? And that is that it is Nevermind the Ballast. Amazing for everybody to join us. Thank you very much, and so thankful of your support for this new venture with Pitch BTCC. It's been brilliant. I've loved the guests we've had on so far. They've been amazing, and I've loved your support as well. So thank you so much to everybody that's got involved. And as always, please type your questions in the box tonight. Got Nic Hamilton on, absolute legend, absolute gem of a lad. Love him to bits. Got a great story, so we'll get him involved in a second. But yeah, get your questions in, and me and Nick will try and get to the questions because sometimes we can't see him because they're covering my beard or face. Anyway, right, let's find him because he did send me a request. Here he is. Let's get him in. So let's go live with Nick, and yeah, nice warm welcome, and yeah. He's just waiting here for a bit of a connection. It's connecting. Nick, all right, lad.
Yo, how you doing, bro?
How's it going, mate?
Not too bad, mate. Yourself?
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm good. You're
looking quite red, mate, to be fair.
I've just been hanging my undies out in the back garden. It's still 30 degrees here. I'm sweating in here, mate. It's properly warm. What's it like down south? Is it?
Mate, it's hot, mate. It's like 31 degrees here. Yeah, like clear blue skies. Awesome. So I've been inside most of the day, so I thought I'll come out definitely for the live and chill a bit more.
Venture outside, mate. I played golf.
Yeah, mate.
I think that's why I'm a bit burnt, mate. I got proper torched on the course, mate. So yeah, it wasn't.
Are you any good at it?
Do you want me to lie? No, do you know what? I hit an 81. I was all right, mate. But
that's good.
It's all right, yeah. Well, you haven't seen the course, mate. It's like pitch and putt where I live. It's a municipal. Yeah.
Hey, honestly, I'd be better than most people. Trust me.
It's
such a frustrating game.
I lose my golf balls in the crisp packets and the Mars bar wrappers on the course.
You're meant to be on a diet, bro.
Oh, mate, I don't know. I give it a go, mate. I give it a go. Hey, but listen, it is so cool, mate, to have you come and do this with us. We've had some cool people on.
Yes.
We've had Jack Goff, your teammate, on, who spoke really highly of yourself. Who's a lovely lad. Jack's a cool lad, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a cool lad. He's a cool lad. Me and Jack, I wouldn't say we go way back. I remember obviously racing Jack, 2012 Clios, and then yeah, me and him sort of had a bit of a coming together at Donington last year, where he decided to lose the rear on cold tires and then T-bone me down the crane of curves and then blame it on me. So yeah, that's a running joke that we've had for I would say now for nearly a year. So it's been good fun with him.
You know, you say that, I remember that now. And didn't all of the do you know what? I remember it went live to him on an interview, and he just straight away said it, didn't he?
Straight away.
All of his teammates and him went off at the same time on a cold right rear.
Yeah. Yeah, it was exactly that. Yeah, so it wasn't until I got to the old hairpin, and then all of a sudden I had him come through the side of my passenger door. And then and to be fair, it was that accident or that incident that that sparked my opportunity to drive for Team Hard this year, which is pretty crazy. So I mean, everything happens for a reason, right? And and so the team were very passionate. They straight away went up to my dad in the pit lane, and they were like, you know, what's your son doing? You know, taking out our drivers. And my dad's standing there like, I don't think he did. My dad actually, when I came in, because obviously the car was damaged and I was pretty much out of the race, my dad opened the door and said, Nick, did you touch any of the Team Hard cars? I said no. I was just minding my own business, and yeah, they ended up coming through my passenger door, and then it was that sort of sparked where I would go this year. Obviously, things didn't end very well for me last year with Motorbase, not in terms of a relationship, but in terms of, what happened and the fact that I couldn't finish the year. And I always go to my dad for advice, even though he's not fully involved in my career. I always go to him for advice on what I should do. And it was that day where my dad realized that although Team Hard were very quick to make a decision or an assumption of what happened, he really saw their passion and determination about their team. And so my dad said, you know what, Nick, if it was me, and especially where you are in your career right now, starting again in touring cars, and it's all about experience, you want a decent team around you that are passionate. And so he said, I would tap up Team Hard. And you know what? That's what I did. And to be fair, Team Hard have a bit of a name for themselves. So I didn't really know what to expect when I turned up at Team Hard and saw, Tony Gillam. But I was super, super surprised. I got the nicest, warmest welcome. Not from Tony himself initially. It was from another member of staff. Almost never really seen her before, never met her before, but she embraced me and was so almost proud to have me turn up in their office. And that was enough. That was enough. I've never been welcomed so much at such a short period of time. So yeah, it's pretty crazy how that whole scenario and situation of Jack basically backing into me, which is the reason why I'm where I am now.
I love that. That is so cool. I never knew any of that, Nick. I knew about the situation where, because it showed the replay, and I was like, oh Jack, you're gonna have to apologise for that, mate, because he was fuming.
Yeah.
But I know why he would have been fuming, and I think you know why as well. It's because he would have been running on a tight budget like yourself, and I think that. You know what it's like if someone wipes you out, that you're like, oh, you're straight away. You don't look at anything. You just go in, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't handle myself like that. I always blame myself before blaming others. I'm quite a nice guy when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it can really frustrate you, and especially when you are struggling on a budget, and damage just isn't good for anybody. It's not good for the team. It's not good for the driver. It's not good for the funds. It's not good for the bank account. And touring cars, especially race 3, is sort of full of damage. So it can be quite difficult to hold yourself at times. But yeah, me and Jack, as I said, have a running joke, and we're pretty cool. So we now get on really, really well. And to be fair, he's a really nice guy. And learning from him as a teammate is really important for me, because he's been to so many different teams, factory teams, with Eurotech, and he was with WSR, and he's got a lot of experience, and so he's sort of taken me under his wing a bit, and I've learned a lot from him. So for me this year, it's if I can get to as close as possible to him. That's my main target, because wherever he ends up, if I'm not far behind, I think I'll end up being in quite a good position. So, it's a development year, and yeah, as I said, it's a new car, it's a new team, and so far so good. So, can't wait for the season to start.
Love it, mate. Love it. And I was looking today on your Twitter feed. I know a lot of people don't really use Twitter that much. It's more Instagram, but what was striking about your bio was it said something along the lines of a racing driver trying to achieve the impossible and exceed expectations. Now, can you explain that to people watching? Because I think that's a great thing to say, mate.
Yeah. So, well, I'll put it this way. I was born 2 months premature. I was diagnosed with spastic diplegia, which is a form of cerebral palsy. I didn't really know what I had going for me. My parents had never had a disabled son before, or a disabled child before, so they didn't really know what to do. They decided to make my life as tough as possible and not wrap me up in cotton wool. And I just tried to go through life like a normal kid, but it was difficult because I was struggling to walk, falling over, hitting my head all the time. I couldn't really fit in with anybody. You know, kids are quite brutal at a young age. They don't really think about others' feelings as such. And I was always getting stared at, always getting bullied, and looked down upon. So the detail of my condition is basically my what can I say, my skeleton grows faster than my muscles grow. So my growth spurt was horrendous, to the point where, you know, my legs would always tighten up and get to a point where I could only walk, if I wanted to walk, on my tiptoes. I could never put my heels down. And so, you know, try and sort of keep your legs bent, walk on your tiptoes, and try and walk up and down stairs at school and not fall over and make a fool of yourself was a really, really hard thing for me. So, you know, growing up with all of that, and really not understanding why I was the chosen one to be given a disability. You know, I think it's 1 in 500 births are diagnosed with the condition. And so, you know, I was going through a really tough mental time. And I remember, you know, crying myself to sleep multiple times, thinking, why me? Why can't I just be an able-bodied person? Because life would be so much easier. And then as I grew up, you know, I'm a big mummy's boy. I love my mum. She lives through me, and she understands absolutely everything there is to understand about my condition. And she always told me that when I start to grow up, I'll start to realize that, you know, my condition will make me unique, and I can almost surprise people with it if I treat it with the right attitude. And so, going back to, you know, what does my bio mean? You know, I always wanted to race, following my brother's footsteps. You know, we were a poor black family. We came from nothing. All of a sudden, started go-karting, and Lewis was very good at it. And it went from something that was a hobby to something that could be a full-blown career. And now Lewis is a 6-time former world champion, and none of us planned that. But I wanted to always race and drive because my brother did. And but to do that, I needed to overcome my condition and get stronger, and actually learn to walk, and then learn to be strong enough to hit the brake pedal and accelerator pedal, and compete with able-bodied people, because really I'm a Paralympian in the Olympics. You know, all of my competitors are able-bodied, and it's the top flight of British motorsport. So there's so much for me to take on. So exceeding expectations, I would say, is always trying to people always make an assumption of me, being a Hamilton, being Lewis's brother, and potentially having a load of money behind me, and everything's being gifted to me. Everything's really easy, and so the whole exceeding expectations thing is to not just exceed others' expectations of myself, but my own expectations of myself, and the goals that I've set. And yeah, trying to achieve the impossible is, as I said, I was just a disabled kid with no direction, and I couldn't walk for the life of me. And now, you know, I'm a racing driver in the pinnacle of British motorsport. And so for me, that's achieving the impossible, and I'm still nowhere near where I want to be. You know, I want to achieve so much more in terms of results, and I haven't been given it easy because I never really had the funding or anything put behind me. I never had the time to develop my craft. I was always thrown in at the deep end. I was thrown in at Clio's, and I had no understanding of racing, really. So I was making loads of mistakes, but people just make their judgments and they think they know the story. And then the same in touring cars. You know, I was always struggling for money, and which you wouldn't expect with my brother being a multi-millionaire. But we value the pound like everybody does, and I always wanted to do everything on my own, and it's been a hard, long journey. This is a really long answer, by the way.
Absolutely.
But it's been a it's been a real hard, long journey. You know, I do everything, absolutely everything on my own. So all the sponsors that you see, the car design, um, you know, my t-shirt design, me basically getting into the car is all on my own. I have no one helping me at all. So I raise all of the funds, and if I lose the funds, I don't race. And so as time's gone on, you know, people are quick to judge on what they believe, and you know, some of them think I'm not necessarily gifted as a driver or whatever. But for me, I've always given it 110% with what I've been given, and what I've been given hasn't been the greatest amount for me to show my ability. Now, fast forward to 2015, I wanted to try and revitalize myself almost and go into British touring cars, because if you're not seen, you're pretty much forgotten. And so I rushed into touring cars, and I could only do 4 rounds. It's all the money I pretty much had, and I actually put some money personally in myself. I wanted it so bad. And then I ran out after AMD and yeah, tried to revitalize myself again and went back to Clio's, and I was just desperate to race, and I didn't have the funds and the money to really develop myself. And then that put me into Motorbase last year, which actually came from a relationship that I built with one of my sponsors. So all of a sudden, I turn up and I'm now back in touring cars with a top flight team, and it's now time for me to actually have the opportunity to develop. You know, I'm still, even though I've been in and out of motorsport for years and years, I actually haven't had, consecutive years of racing and learning every time. I've always done 1 year or half a year, and then had no money and had to stop, and then I'm out for a year or a year and a half. So you always lose it. And so yeah, jumped in Motorbase, and I couldn't believe where I was. And BTCC fans are pretty harsh to judge as well. So when I signed to Motorbase, everyone was saying, "Oh, it's a waste of a seat," and I hope they've got a lot of spares packages ready and all this sort of stuff. And you know what? That's just a way of bullying, and I've been bullied all my life, so it made no difference to me whatsoever from what people were saying. And so my target was to be in the top 20. I know that in touring cars, people that watch it all the time, they realize that the likes of Turkington and Plato sometimes struggle to get out the top 20, because it's so close and it's such a tight championship. That was my target. And so I went to Brands Hatch first race, and we qualified in the wet. It's the first time I'd ever driven the car in the wet. We qualified P20, and we were the top rookie, there, beating people like Aidan Moffat and Adam Morgan and Dan Robottom, who was, front runner in Clio's. And then Sunday came, and my brother turned up, and I was like, oh my God, now it's going to be a lot of pressure with my brother being there. And it was changeable conditions. We went on the wets because it would be safer for me to do so. We started 20th, and we went from 20th to 11th in 3 laps. And
Remember?
yeah, we went from 20th to 11th in 3 laps. And my racecraft was so strong, and I had no idea where I got it from. I just drove with my I just drove with my head and did it off pure instinct. And that race, obviously, it started to dry out, so the guys on slicks ended up coming through. But if it continued, wet, I would have finished top 10 in that race. And I remember, nearly overtaking Turkington on the same tire in wets or whatever, even though he might have been struggling. But that race gave me enough realization for myself to continue regardless of what happens, because clearly I have something to be able to do it. Because if I didn't have the ability to do it, I wouldn't have done what I did in that race, even though on paper I still ended up P20, but really I was fighting with the top guys, you know, Camish and Ingram and everyone that had been in it for donkeys. So that was enough. And you know, the whole year after that I knew was going to be up and down, you know, and I'd have so much to learn in terms of the procedures that go on in touring cars, you know, how you look after the tyre, how you switch the tyre on, you know, how you get a good qualifying lap out of the tyre. It only lasts one lap. And if you don't have the experience to drag the time out of the tyre, you're going to be nowhere. And for me, it was just a complete learning process. And I feel like I've learned a lot, and especially you know, basically getting screwed out of my drive at the end of the year, which was no fault of Motorbase. It was not the fault of Motorbase at all. And that left me like, you know, wow, I've had an interesting year. Like, I clearly know I can do it, but haven't really got the results I wanted. But maybe I'm being a bit too hard on myself. Oh, and now I've got absolutely nothing again. How do I, you know, get myself back up? And that's where I rallied again with my sponsors, you know, Rocket and Monster and Big Change and NGK Spark Plugs, and they're a family to me, and you know, they believe in me and continue to push me forward to this year. So I've gone straight into Team Hard now, and already, as it's a new car and a new team, because I've done a whole year in a touring car already, I felt at home, and it took me a lap, 2 laps, and I already knew where I was in terms of my feeling, and yeah, ready to go. So that's my story of being a 28-year-old from nothing in probably 5 minutes. So sorry, it's a really long answer.
Nick, honestly, mate, that was, I love that, because, you know, you told it how it was, and you've just basically kept everyone, you know, you've kept everyone up to speed on what did happen, what's happening, and what's going on. Because I think the problem I find with British touring cars is, you know, we don't have a lot of time on the Sunday or the Saturday to get any of the stories across, you know. And I remember a brilliant interview with you and Louise Goodman. It was a feature, and I can't remember what circuit it was at, but showing it at, was it at Thruxton? We shown it at did we show it at Knockhill, I think? Yeah.
It was yeah, you did. You showed it at Knockhill, but it was done at Thruxton.
It was done at done at the scariest, fastest track in the world, and we're showing it at the slowest, most weirdest, let's bounce off every curb for a laugh, mate, track on. And you had cameras on that day. And let's actually, Nick, let's talk about that. Let's talk about, I remember I got really angry that day. I got popped at on the internet because we were speaking about yourself, and I could never imagine, like anybody that's watching this now, what it is like with your condition to drive a car that I know probably needs about 13 stone worth of brake pressure to make the car stop, which is about my weight, kind of, probably a bit less.
Yeah.
And there was a few people had a pop. I went for them on the telly, and I say I shouldn't have. I'm actually glad I did, actually, because do you know what it made me realise? It made me realise that British touring car fans are actually, I think, the best fans in the world, because there's a tiny percentage that are absolutely don't have a clue, and I couldn't even care less about them. But 99% of them are just the best people and welcome you in to our family and want to ask a question. I mean, how do you find it?
I mean, I love British touring cars. You know, for me, my decision with my career, you know, sometimes my mum, my dad, my brother, they don't understand why I continue. And why I continue is because it gives me a sense of purpose. I use my motorsport to get up in the morning and focus on overcoming my condition, and because I want to beat these guys. I want to beat these able-bodied guys, and my target is to get to the podium of BTCC. You know, whatever race it is, even if it's a reverse grid, whatever. for me, I want to get there, and at the same time, if I can inspire people whilst I do it, then that's a bonus. So far, you know, the thing with fans, you know, they're very quick to judge on certain things, and they like to sit behind their keyboard screen, their computer screen, and you know, make pops at people. But they would then come and be nice to you, to your face, and you actually never know who that person is, because there's so many people that are at a motorsport event or a BTCC event that I have so many people coming up to me and wanting my picture, but do I actually know whether that guy was the last guy that made me feel crap because he was dissing my driving or whatever it is? So you don't know. So the best thing you do is hold your head high and move forward. Now, going back to Knock Hill, I remember what you did and what you said, and I really appreciate it. So obviously Knock Hill last year was first of all, I didn't even know I was going to make that race. I didn't actually have the money to do it because I had a sponsor pull out before that race. And I didn't know until Thursday that I was going to do it. And so I had to rush. I had to rush to Knock Hill on the last flight to Scotland. And my title sponsor, Rocket, actually stumped up with the cash for me to do it, which was incredible to have a brand like that to be behind you, to understand what the situation is. You know, they didn't have to do what they did, and you know, they stumped up. And I'd never been to Knock Hill before, never driven it. I'd seen it, but I'd never been around it, knew nothing. So the first time I'd been around it was, you know, in my Ford Focus, and with a touring car and practice sessions, even though you've got 2 40-minute sessions, they mean pretty much nothing, because you do a lot of preparation for qualifying. So most of your session is done by, you know, going in and out and basically doing crosses and you know, looking after your tires and preparing. So I had pretty much no time to practice. Then going back to what you said about brake pressure and you know, pushing that amount of pressure. You know, when I was started training, you know, I couldn't push 10 kilos with both my legs. And for me, I knew that the only way to be able to push the required amount was if I just continue to push more and more and more every day, whether that's actually, you know, walking, strengthening my legs, going to the gym, working on the leg press. And yeah, now I get to a point I can push 130 kilos with my left leg. So that is purely just for me to be able to hit the brake pedal with the same pressure as everybody else. We have a different cylinder for the brakes for my car, but it's not a modification or anything. It's just any driver can have them. It's just that I choose a bigger cylinder just to help get the pressure. But other than that, you know, that's everything I have to sort of to go through. And obviously my modifications to the car are a bit of a pain. But yeah, I know, have a hand clutch on the back of the steering wheel and you know, 2 pedals. And that's what I've realized I needed to be able to race competitively. And yeah, I would say on a good day, you know, I can be 3/10 off. On a bad day, I'm a 1.5 off. But most of the time, I'm around 7/10 to 8/10, which isn't enough. I should be a lot closer, but that's just me beating myself up. And I think to be able to compete anyway at the moment with my level of experience, with my condition, and to get within 8/10 is pretty good. But I got more to do.
It's absolutely astounding, mate. And do you know what I hate doing the most? Is blowing smoke. Hate it. And I know it as well. I know you'll hate it. You look like one of those people who would hate it. You just want to get out there, race, crack on. And you know, the more we speak, I don't know if you know, because I never assume this, but kind of got a bit of not a connection, but we're kind of the same people. Where my sister is really famous. She's Melanie C from the Spice Girls. I never assumed that people know that, and I never. Did you know that?
I did know.
That,
I did.
Nick? Because I'm never too sure if people know. But mate, honestly,
I'm losing you. I'm losing you. Wait, one sec. Oh, hang on. Oh, oh no. Are you there?
and I'll always tell people about. But at the same time, it's a difficult one, isn't it? People are quick to judge, aren't they? And that's something that we'll always have to live with, I suppose. And it's just human nature for people to have a bit of a pop, I suppose. That's how I see it, anyway.
100%, mate. And to be fair, I actually I missed what you said at the start there, because I think I was struggling for internet. But yeah, I should be all right now. But no, completely. I think being in the shadow of somebody is really, really difficult. Especially, I mean, the difference between me and you is, although I didn't know whether you said you were in the shadow or anything, but I'm just talking about, you know, having a sibling that is well known. But for me, your sibling is in a different industry as such. You know, she's a singer. She's female, and her career path was in a different direction to where you wanted to go. From my understanding, where you wanted to go was touring cars and be a racing driver. And the difference with me is that my brother he's at the top of the sport. He's at the top of the sport. He's basically, you know, king when it comes to motorsport at the moment. And he's in the same industry that I want to excel in. So as soon as you've got the surname Hamilton and you're in a race car, you're always looked at instantly, regardless. And, you know, making mistakes. if most of the drivers make a mistake in touring cars, people don't really care. Whereas I've been off in the gravel and can't move because the car's stuck, and I've had kids, you know, run to the fence and get their dad to take a picture with them next to my car, even though it's in the gravel almost, you know. And and for me, you know, I don't want to be sitting in the gravel. I already feel bad as it is, but having people around you that make the most of you making mistakes and taking pictures of it and stuff, it's really difficult. So it can be a real big ask mentally. But you know, it's the nature of the beast, and I wouldn't have it any other way, because it's everything together, from my condition to what I go through, to my mentality, which is made me who I am today, and I'm pretty proud of it. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Nick, the only thing I can relate to that, mate, and everything you said I fully agree with. The only thing I'll say to you, mate, is how would you feel if somebody rang you at 3 a.m. singing, "If you want to be my lover, you gotta get with my friends"?
Oh, mate.
and I'm telling you, mate.
Did that happen often?
Every night. I'm 40, and I'm so glad that there wasn't mobile phones like, you know, when I was 15, 16, when it all happened, because that would have mental pressure, and you are dead right, because it's a different kettle of fish for me, because I can sing a bit better than Armel, but she just got fake. I'm joking, I'm terrible, but the mental pressure put on people like myself and you is such. People will never understand, and they're in particular, you know, following in the motorsport footsteps of your brother. People will never understand.
Yeah.
And exactly like I say, they just don't know the whole story of. We were speaking offline before, just checking, that we're all okay with times and stuff. And about sponsors, your Rocket, Monster, all your great people. It's return on investment, but it's a relationship, isn't it? It really is. They're part of your
Completely.
family. It's the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And people always say, oh, Lewis, Nick's only there because of his brother and whatever. And my answer to that is this hat that I have on, this Monster hat, they only give Monster hats to athletes. And Monster signed me up as an athlete before they even signed Lewis up as an athlete. And I worked 5 years to get this hat on my head. They turned me down many and multiple times. And it was down to my pure determination and to continue to build my brand separate to Lewis, even though obviously I am related to him, and what he does for me sometimes on social media helps, but really I try and keep myself as separated as I can, and it's down to that, which is the reason why I have such great partners, and especially picking up the likes of Rocket. Rocket, no one really knew about when I met the CEO back in the day. I met him. I met him at dinner 2 years ago, and I didn't really know who he was. I didn't know how successful he was, but he was speaking to my dad at the time, and I always give 100% of my time to people regardless, because you never know who they are and you never know what they can do for you in the future. So yeah, I had dinner with this guy, and he was blown away by me and just left me his card. And I went to Cleo's actually after that, and I actually asked him, would you be interested in sponsoring Cleo's? And he said, no, I'm not interested in Cleo's, but good luck. And so I didn't speak to him again after that, and I left it a year or a year and a half, and I thought, right, I'm going to use my own initiative now and continue to build my relationship. And I just found his card that I'd always kept, because I knew that at some point I might want to use it, and sent him an email and said, look, this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do, and obviously a bit about my motorsport, would you help? And he just said yes straight away within 10 minutes. And and he is now the reason of why I race in touring cars, and I'm so grateful for the support that Rocket give me. And it's only now that Rocket are starting to expand. They did their partnership with Williams, now with the W Series and in Formula E. But actually, I was the first person that they sponsored. And so building relationships are so important, and it comes down to perseverance. And now today I heard that it's public news, which is quite good. The Rocket might be sponsoring Mercedes, so that has no link or anything to me. I did it first. They're my sponsor first, and that's how it is. But yeah, it's interesting, and as time goes on, and especially doing lives like this is really important, because I want to start being honest about my story, so that people can start seeing me for what I am and seeing my racing for what it is. And when you see me drive past you, if you're a fan on the sidelines watching, and you see me drive past you and overtake somebody, you see the achievement that is for me, to be racing competitively, and what I do in the face of adversity. So I'm just trying to tell my story more and more and more, without making Lewis look bad or my parents look bad, because if my parents didn't do what they did in my life, I wouldn't be so strong, and I wouldn't want it any other way. So I'm always hard on myself, and I just got to keep pushing forward to overcome my conditions still, and to get to the top of my goals or my goal list, and keep moving forward.
Mate, absolutely astounding. And I don't, you know, Nick, what you said there, people would never, I think I'm speaking for everyone here, mate. People would never, ever doubt that you are, you know, doing an amazing touring cars. I'll tell you how it is. I'll tell you exactly how it is. I said this to Tim Harvey at one of the rounds. We were talking about how close the grid was in time. And if you put me in for a weekend, say, I would like to think that you would, in the rest of probably the mid-15th or something, say, because you've not been to Knock Hill so much. I've been there loads of time. I'd be 20th, 21st. That is how hard British touring cars is. Just look at cars. The TVs now are so good. The cars don't much. They are, and I know what they feel like. They feel like a magic carpet round there, especially that Ford Focus would have, because they're quite a nervous car. That it's astounding, mate. You've not completed. You've only done 2 years of touring cars, and they're not 2 proper years, really, are they?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's what did I do? I did eight weekends in 2019, and I did 4 weekends in 2015. So that's all of my touring car knowledge and experience so far. So yeah. I mean, I haven't done much, but I just want to keep pushing forward, you know, and hopefully, I know that going into this year with Team Hard, I know we don't necessarily have the best car and the most competitive car, but I've got a good teammate in Jack Goff, and whether I have Mike Bushell or Howard Fuller in the third Passat, either way, you know, I like them both, and we'll always buzz off each other and push each other forward. The team, as I said at the start of this conversation, you know, they're so driven, and they have the ability to really develop and be a strong team. And I'm learning so much, learning more and more about engineering and how I want my car to be set up, you know, and I'm realizing like what I noticed, I don't like the car moving around a lot. So I don't like oversteer. I like to control everything and allow my left foot under braking to control what the rear of the car does. Then you go to Snetterton, and I say, look, you know, make the car as safe as you can, and then we'll work it out from there. And then realize that rear steer is so important around Snetterton, for example, and understanding the feeling that rear steer gives you. I couldn't get my head around it initially, you know, where you feel like the rear end is just going to completely break loose, but the fact that it doesn't, and you know, all of these little bits and bobs, you know, from understanding my brake bias to camber, you know, and dampers and everything like that I didn't really take into account. I didn't really have the brain power, knowledge, and time to understand. That now I'm really starting to focus on that, and you know, that will come good in my driving when I get more comfortable. And so far so good. And you know, hopefully when this season gets going, you know, I keep developing forward with the team, because just as much as relationships are important with sponsors, team relationship is super important as well. And you know, I'm at Team Hard for the right reasons, and I'm proud to be there. And I think they're proud to have me on board. So let's hope we can keep moving forward. And if I can keep bringing in the money to race every year, I'll only get better and better. So I believe at the moment, my ability is at its lowest level as we speak. So I can only go higher from here.
Oh, mate, I'm totally with you. And I love that you're just always looking forward It's all about the next race. And I know that I've driven for Team Hard, Tony Gillam and all those guys. Their hearts are in the right place, and they will do anything to make sure that happens for you. It's great. Off the back of that, Nick, how would you like to be perceived by the watching public?
That's a really good question. Well, firstly, the thing is, people think that disabled people want to be treated the same as able-bodied people, right? Now, I want to be treated the same as an able-bodied person, but I want you guys to realize what I'm doing, you know, and I can drive a touring car, you know, pretty fast, and you know, as I said, within a second of the top guys in touring cars at the moment, but I can't actually get upstairs without falling over, and it's a pretty cool achievement. And so for me, it's never to feel sorry for me, because I don't even feel sorry for myself, and I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of having my condition and everything that I've been through. If I didn't have my condition, as I said, I wouldn't be the same person. So never feel sorry for me, but I want you to understand the magnitude of my task, and what I'm trying to achieve, and that it's not just as black and white as you see it sometimes. You know, oh, you know, Nick maybe has made a mistake and he's gone off again, or oh, Nick's at the back, or he's struggling here, or he's struggling there. You know, there's always a reason. There's a reason why, and it's a massive journey and a massive process that I have to continue to move forward regardless. And so instead of, even if you're not a fan of mine, you know, instead of making a judgment about me and support me, would be greatly appreciated, because at the end of the day, I'm doing it for myself, but I'm also doing it to inspire others. And I don't want to be sitting at the back all my bloody life. But it's going to be, as I said, part of the journey. So when I eventually get to the top 10, and then eventually to the top 5, and then eventually to the podium, I'm not actually going to be able to get up on the podium. You know, I won't be able to actually step up on there. So it's going to be a laugh asking Dan Camish to help me up and be like, dude, can you know, I know I just beat you in that race, but do you mind just giving me a hand up onto the podium? So it's, you can see I've had lots of time to think about it, and it would be a crazy emotional achievement for me to do so. And you know, I could have done it in some Fiesta championship, or a championship that's not as competitive as British touring cars, but I'm doing it in the top flight, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I would always choose the most difficult route, because for me that is the most rewarding.
Brilliant, mate. Absolutely brilliant. And you know, I'm with you on everything on that. I think it's amazing. And like you say, you just want people to understand. That is all you're asking. That's all you're asking in it, mate. You know, I think like yours, I'm a type 1 diabetic, as you know, and it's just little sugar lows here and there I deal with. But sometimes I feel like saying to people, actually, what it's like, mate, because it's quite difficult. So can you just give me a bit of leeway?
Completely.
That's the way it goes.
I totally understand it. And
listen, fella, NHS, you're climbing the stairs 101 times, 8.5 grand.
Oh, we got a bit of a delay on the old live. But yeah, NHS target and goal. I actually raised 15 grand eventually, which was good. I'm really proud of. And yeah, I mean, it was great to be able to do a task that, you know, I was still within the restrictions of lockdown, it was also hard enough for me to have to work, but it also showed the magnitude of my condition and how it affects me, and the simple tasks of, you know, going up and down stairs that is as I said, simple for everybody, people, is difficult for me. And then to relate it to my brother, you know, because I'm super proud of him and what he's done and his achievements, is the perfect way. And as I said to you on the phone before this, to be able to raise money for charity and not try and raise money for yourself to go racing felt really, really good. And I want to continue to create more challenges for myself, for charity. So I'm going to be thinking, you know, outside the box and thinking what I can do. And that goes back to when you were saying about exceeding expectations. I want to start now doing different challenges that are not necessarily possible for my condition, and make them achievable. So at some stage I'm going to be doing that as well. So, you know, it was a nice thing to do, and I'm glad that, you know, 15,000, you know, with the NHS, it's not gonna go a long way, but it's better than nothing. And it was more of a proud moment for me to do it.
Absolutely brilliant, mate. I'm sorry I got that figure wrong, Nick. But 15,000, mate.
It's fine, it's fine.
That is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely love it. Love charity work. So,
thank you.
Like you say, it's just great to push yourself into lockdown and stuff, isn't it? It is amazing. And, you know, I think looking through the messages and the, you know, the things that people are on here, mate, I've just been having a quick glance through, and it is amazing. And, you know, and I know we don't, the blowing smoke thing is what it is, but you just cannot not look and be so happy about what you see from because it's unbelievable. Because I just know how hard it's a British touring car. I know how hard it is physically, full stop. I think it's amazing. But the reason I was going to say to you, and a friend of ours who's probably watching, Miss Spinderella, she watches quite a lot of the time. She has a friend who, I believe her daughter has the same condition as yourself. And she just said tonight, you know, it'd be great to hear what Nick's got to say, because of, you know, his condition and what he's done and what he's achieved. I mean, what kind of advice, mate, do you give people that, you know, you were in a wheelchair and you couldn't walk and you were told a lot of things that were negative, but they were trying to tell you how it is and how it was going to be. How do you overcome that, mate? What do you say to people, youngsters in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to try and give my insight into overcoming your condition if you've got cerebral palsy or near enough any condition. Now, my parents are very, very unique. They, as I said at the start of this conversation, you know, they didn't wrap me up in cotton wool. They made my life as almost difficult as possible to give me that independence. Now, I always said that, or continue to say now, that it all depends on how the parents see it. So if your parents see the condition as a problem, then your child will always see the condition as a problem. And their mindset would work in such a way that I would always look to my mum, and if my mum was worried, I would be worried. But if my mum wasn't worried and didn't really care about certain things, then I knew that I could get through it and move forward. So you're always going to have people giving you advice as a parent. I've never been a parent, so I don't understand the full ins and outs. But my mum always allowed me to just try things and fall over and hit my head. And I know it sounds terrible, but hit my head and pick myself up and almost learn my own mistakes and learn from my own mistakes, and not necessarily be treated any different. So if I said to mum, you know, I want to, at the time I was in a wheelchair, my mum, I would see like a big hill that I just wanted to go down. I just wanted to go down there and go as fast as possible. I go, Mum, can I go down? And just like any other child would want to do, instead of my mum being, you know, nervous, she knew I might fall out, but oh well, or whatever. And she just let me go. And so that allowed me to have my freedom and realize that I can do these certain things. And then growing up, as I said, going through the bullying and people being proper hard on you and proper harsh as well in certain areas, I realized it's all about being true to yourself. And my dad always said to me that it's not cool to be a fool. And a lot of these bullies are just fools, and then they try and act like they're cool, but they're not. And if I hadn't been bullied, I think I wouldn't be as strong-minded. So now when you start growing up with your condition, you know, you've got to stand strong for who you are and be proud of who you are, and not always look for the easier route or easier option. Because if you always take the easier option, you actually don't realize your full potential. So you can always achieve something at a certain level, but if you don't allow yourself to go to that next level and fall over and hurt yourself and fail, then you really will never know what you can achieve. So I always try my best to take the hardest option, always. Because I feel like if I can overcome my condition, I can pretty much do anything. And so it's a little bit different because obviously everybody's in a different scenario with their condition, and whether they've got a kid who's, you know, 7 or 6 or 5 or 10 or 15, you know, it's how they are and how they're wired. But all I can say is to be true to yourself and always be positive, and for the parents to be strong behind them, because they are the mountain, they are the force behind them. And if they're weak at any point, you know, everything can collapse. And I'm just very fortunate that my parents were strong enough for me now to be fully independent. You know, I live on my own in my own apartment. You know, I can carry knives and everything. You know, it just sounds the simple stuff that able-bodied people don't have to think about. But, you know, carrying milk and cereal to the table and not dropping it, and yeah, as I said, scissors and all these sort of stuff, I'm able to do because my parents were strong. And so I'm so grateful for their strength and passion and belief in me, because there was a lot of times that I didn't believe in myself, and they all came through my parents. So what I'm actually saying is it all comes down to your parents, and then later on in life or through the process, it's down to yourself and being strong and standing up and feeling positive regardless, and knowing that you're unique, that you can stand out, and that it's good to be who you are, basically.
Hey, Nic, absolutely. I adore you, mate, more than ever. That was brilliant, and I know everyone will be for it. I think that's amazing. You're an inspiration, mate. You're going to hate that, but you are. That's the way it is, mate. We've got 40 seconds left, and I'm just going to say thank you so much on behalf of myself, Mitch, and Nevermind the Ballast, and also every person saying thank you, and you're a great person, mate. You are a legend, fella, and I can't wait to see you in British touring cars this year.
No, mate, I really appreciate it. And lastly, I just want to say that further to what I just said, you know, everybody is saying that I'm an inspiration and you know, what I'm doing is positive, but everybody who is alive has a story, They're breaking down barriers. They've overcoming their own obstacles, whether